Welcome back to GOODER Stories, where strategy meets heart. I'm Gail Hataitham, founder of GOODER Creative Studio, where we help nonprofits and purpose-driven brands turn their values into visuals and their stories into action. Every other week, I sit down with changemakers from across Canada's nonprofit world to explore how marketing can move missions forward. This podcast is here to help you share your story with more clarity, creativity, and confidence. Today, I'm joined by Amanda Schutz, creative director and founder of Curio Studio. What began in 2003 as a one-woman operation in her downtown Edmonton apartment has grown into an illustrator-led design boutique that has served more than 600 clients over the past 2 decades. Amanda's work spans everything from corporate branding to nonprofit campaigns. She's also the founder of Canadian Women in Design and was named a Fellow of Design Professionals of Canada, an honor held by only 72 people since 1960. Outside of Curio, Amanda keeps a fine art practice and is a proud mom to one Jacob and about 3,000 tomato plants. Today, we're exploring how nonprofits can use design to better serve their missions, how to work creatively within limited budgets, and what Amanda has learned from being both a designer and a nonprofit founder. Amanda, welcome to the show.
Hi, Gail. Thanks so much for having me.
So excited to have you here today. We're going to get right into the questions for you. So you started Curio Studio from your apartment in 2003 with no clients or funding. What was your vision then and how has it evolved over the past 20 years?
Well, I might backtrack a little bit further just to share that before I started my studio, I was working as an in house designer for two different engineering firms. And those jobs I landed straight out of college. And I was really quite young at the time. And I definitely learned a lot from those experiences. But I did find that working in house was quite limiting as far as like the variety of work I was being assigned and just fit wise for me. Working in corporate culture had its own challenges. It was a bit of a grind for me. So I would say, like, first and foremost, starting my studio was basically a reaction against trying to find more creativity in my career and also just have a better kind of mental health situation in my job. So at that point, that was kind of the goal, was just to get out of the corporate life. And one thing that I did feel was lacking in the corporate life was that I was trained as an illustrator, but there wasn't really any illustration assignments in that world. And I wanted more of that. So that was like one of the first motivators for me. So my very first client, this is going to really date me, but my very first client that I got out of a newspaper classified ad. It was like, need graphic designer, local theater group, call this number. So I called the number and I got my first client that way. And I'm really proud to say that that is still one of my clients. I've been doing stuff for Northern Light Theater for 23 years. And yeah, it's just like a great story to tell of the client journey and also like client retention. As far as my vision and like how it's evolved over the last 20 years, I would say that, as I've kind of grown up and like had been given more lived experiences, became a mother, I do think that like the values and the passion that I have around doing work that I love and doing work for causes that I believe in, that has been a leading driving force for me. I mean, of course, we need to have client work that will like pay our mortgages and get salaries paid and cover our expenses, but definitely my decision making is more driven by like, what is this work giving to the world, or how am I helping a certain type of client like achieve a goal? So I feel privileged to be able to be at that stage of my career that I can make those choices. But it was like a really long time coming to get to that place. Yeah.
No, that's a really cool story. I love your client's story, especially.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So you work with many nonprofits over the years. Like, can you share a project where, design help amplifying a mission or reach new audiences?
For sure. So I gave this some thought, and like I would say one that comes to mind that feels very, it really did amplify a mission was During COVID, I was assigned a project for the Ontario Council for International Cooperation. It's an organization that partners with a whole bunch of nonprofits all over the world to help support. And they created a podcast called Tapestry 2030. And I partnered with a podcast, like a interviewer, and created a custom illustration for each episode that they recorded. Each episode was based on a nonprofit somewhere in the world. It was places in Africa, South America, Canada, the US, where the OCIC was partnering with this other organization to kind of create some sort of project for the local community. And I was able to, read and research that project and create an illustration depicting what was being done. And, like, it really felt like I was really connecting with people and, like, the actual people in these projects because, like, I was able to create, like, pencil sketches of each scenario. And, like, there was an example where, like, in Ghana, there was this sketch that I did of a whole bunch of women, and, like, they looked at the sketch and they actually provided me feedback on, like, the style of clothing that they were wearing because, like, you do internet research on, like, different cultures and, like, backgrounds and, like, sometimes illustrators are able to, like, really, get the nuggets they need to, like, make people feel seen in the work. But, like, I actually got, like, a feedback loop in that scenario where I was being provided suggestions to, like, better represent the people I was depicting. So it felt really meaningful to me and really kind of cracked open my mind around, like, what can I be doing as an illustrator to really make everybody feel seen in the work that I do. So it was like a learning moment for me as well. But and the outcome was really fantastic, and I felt that they were pleased too. So it felt overall that that was like a success story for a client project.
That's a really good perspective because we probably don't really look at illustration that way that much, like to be able to represent them to clients or for the people to be seen. Yeah, I,
Exactly. I
I
mean,
like
it
that.
happens. I think it happens more and more in the children's book industry. We're seeing that more now, where we
Hmm.
see different topics being captured and like more awareness around that. But I mean, that theory can apply to other types of illustrations or other kinds of design. It is our job as creatives to make sure that we're doing right by the audience and that people feel that they're being represented.
That's really cool. So your studio is known as an illustrator-led studio. What
Mhm.
makes custom illustration especially powerful for nonprofits compared to stock or templated visuals? I know this kind of maybe echoing what you already said, or maybe you can expand a little bit more.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, I do think that, like, if we're comparing, like, illustration to something like photography, there's so much more depth that can be depicted with an illustration. It can tell a deeper story. It can be really imaginative. It can, like, express humanity in a way that, like, maybe a photograph can't represent. And like I said, with, like, just, like, all the little details, like being able to change, those women's dresses to, like, a certain kind of shirt or, like, adjust the pattern so it's, like, representative of the right region or, just even make sure that, like, certain shapes and body details are, like, accurate, like, all those little care and attention, like, really contribute to the success of an illustration. And I think it took me a lot of years to really have the skill and capacity to see some of these other layers. Like the beginning of my career, I was like just figuring out like how to draw competently, how to deal with clients, how to deal with the technical side of working in our business, all the softwares and the invoicing, everything. And now that like all of that is settled, I can really dig deeper. And I think that that can like produce better ideas, more thoughtful metaphors, different illustration styles that like enhance the client outcome.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, like, this kind of custom illustration or design can be seen as a luxury in in the nonprofit world, especially. Like, how do you frame it as an essential mission aligned work rather than just like a nice to have?
Yeah, oh for sure. I mean, I think that it is a luxury to have these fancier types of outputs, and in the nonprofit world like budgets are always such a concern, but it is like I mean, in a world where like everyone is screaming online to be seen and heard, having good design, having custom illustration, having like deeper storytelling, like these are all ways to kind of like rise above all the noise that is happening. And like, I mean, design doesn't just make good things on the surface. All the little choices we make as far as like hierarchy and placement, typeface choice, color, balance, like all of these little decisions just take a marketing tool like one step higher that, might resonate easier than like all the noise that's happening. So I do think that like in a day and age where we're all competing for attention, those things matter.
Yeah, I agree. As you mentioned that like most nonprofits often face tight budgets. How do you help nonprofit organizations create strong visual impact when resources are limited?
Yeah, I mean, I think that first and foremost, before any design is started, like some clients will come to us being like, I want this. And having like a clear evaluation and like reflecting on what is the goal of this project? Is it needed? Is it, instead of this, should we do this? Like making sure that like what we're being hired to do is actually something that is going to be useful for the client, I think is really important. Like I can't tell you how many times over the last 10 years I've had a client come to me being like, we need a video or we need a brochure. And it's like, do you need a $10,000 video or do you just need this? Like having the, like the wherewithal and the ethics to even talk people out of doing things they don't need, I think is something that's like responsible and important in the nonprofit sector, because I do think it's that nonprofits, they're working with limited funds and it's like borderline unethical to take their
Hmm.
money for something that's not going to be useful to them, if that makes sense.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that there's that piece, and then, if there's capacity on the Curio side, if we have, time and resources, we really try to give 110% to those nonprofit clients and, like, throw in extras if we have capacity to do that. So,
Hmm.
like if we're talking about like a little arts organization that's got really limited resources and we have time, we'll throw in extra Canva templates or we'll give them a few extra assets, like just because we can, because that's the generous thing to do. So we try to behave generously and like, try to be reciprocal. The client wins. And then it's like, it makes us look really good too. So it helps for like referrals and repeat business.
Yeah, for sure. I love that ethical and moral standards that you have running your
Mhm.
business, right? Like there's no point of producing well just to produce it because like there's so many things that we need to consider it, like the environmental impact, the social impact, and how that impact the client's mission specifically, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that. So like what patterns have you noticed in how the most successful nonprofits approach visual identity and messaging?
I mean, I think I've seen like some of the patterns I've seen is that like they're resourceful and responsive. They invest in good design and branding. That's kind of
Right.
a no-brainer. I think trust is something that's important to talk about with nonprofits too, like building good partners and leaning on each other. I have noticed that like nonprofits that I've worked with that the project has gone really well. I feel like my contacts there have seen our portfolio, have gotten to know me, and they put their trust in me and let me do what it is I need to do because they understand that they've hired a skilled person that is going to do right by them. So like having those healthy trusting relationships, I think, is a pattern that of success. But yeah, they're stewards of their limited resources and they're doing the best that they can with what they have. But yeah, I think that the relationship and the trust is like one of the most important components.
I agree. You also founded the nonprofit Canadian Women in Design. So, how has being on both sides as a service provider and nonprofit leadership, how you work with mission-driven organizations?
I mean, at a base level, it's helped me really appreciate that there is so much work involved with running uh, a nonprofit or you know an organization like Canadian Women Design. So, like, when I started it years ago, I had a very humble beginning. I just become a new mom and I didn't have capacity to work with the Graphic Designers of Canada anymore because I was not able to run board meetings. I had a baby on my hip, and like I really wanted to find other women who were working in the industry and juggling motherhood, honestly, and what that felt like and what were the challenges. And it's grown and evolved into like connecting with all types of women and non-binary designers from different backgrounds and being able to learn their point of view. But truly, I didn't know what was involved. I thought, oh, I'll just make a website and do a few little interviews and that'll be it. But like it can really become quite robust if you scale up. So I've come to really be humbled and like appreciate the work involved behind the scenes. And also just having like some light gratitude that like I can resource myself and like do all the design and marketing myself without having to find a partner. Like that has been a huge cost savings for me. And like, I'm able to like obsess with the design of the Canadian Women Design brand and like make it as beautiful as I want to make it because I have the wherewithal to do it myself.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit more about your nonprofit? You already explained how you started it. How is it going and how do you see it growing?
Yeah, like I think at this point there's dozens and dozens and dozens of interviews on the site. So that's been the main thing that's been going with this project for the last 7 or 8 years. Usually try to do at least a half a dozen interviews a year. So that's been going well and like the feedback I have been getting has been great. I do think that it's a resource for a lot of young women graduating from design school and wanting to understand what is there for them. It's also been like a really healing tool for both myself and the interviewees because I find that like women are generally shy about celebrating their own successes and reflecting on their accomplishments. So I do find that like each interview is almost like a bit of a therapy session where I'm like coaxing the interviewee to actually go through with it and to like boast a little about what they've done. And it's helped me realize that like I can be a supportive person, a supportive woman and like help these women shine, help them celebrate themselves. So at a baseline, that's like basically what the project has been about for the last 7 years. But I have a lot of supporters and like helpers that like have been trying to encourage me to do more with it. There's been some chatter about maybe doing like an educational wing of it where we could create some curriculum for schools about women in the design industry in Canada because there isn't actually a lot of like there's not a lot of that taught in school. It's all men in design history. There's also been some chatter about like maybe doing like a mentorship program where we like pair design like women interviewees with young designers. In the last couple of years, I did do like a one-off project with a client where 4 of the interviewees illustrated these wraps for error shed stations. And an error shed station is basically a monitoring station where like they measure the quality of the air so we know if it's safe to breathe during like wildfire season. And we were able to create this partnership where the women were able to illustrate themes around environmentalism. The artists were given a fee for doing the work, but we also were able to elevate Canadian women in design and air quality awareness. So it was like a really beautiful partnership. And I hope to do more of those types of partnerships in the future.
I love all those ideas. I can't wait to see how it's gonna keep going over the years. Oh, like I
Mhm.
think it will be awesome.
Yeah, thanks.
So you're doing like so many things, tackling so many things in your life. What keeps you energized creatively, and what advice would you give to other like nonprofit leaders trying to sustain their own passion and creativity over the long haul?
Yeah, that's a really great question and like a tricky one to answer because I think everyone has their own needs. For me and my personality, I need to be fed nature and I need to be fed connecting and relationships. So, like, the experiences that I have with my son and the experiences that I have with my community feed me and motivate me to like have resolve to show up. Like there's a lot of challenges happening in the world right now that can feel scary and like get us down and make us feel helpless. And I think that reframing some of that fear into community care can be energizing. At least it is for me because I feel like I am useful and I'm doing something and it's changing. It's helping others. So I do find that work helps me stay inspired. Being in nature always heals me. Being on my bike in the forest is like one of my greatest healing tools. Beyond that, I mean, I think that like taking breaks and resting is important because if you keep going and burn out, you can't, you can't continue to show up. And like, I remember years ago when I was in therapy, I mean, this is a pretty typical analogy, but my therapist said it's just like when you're in an airplane and like there's turbulence and the oxygen masks come down. You put the oxygen mask on you first so you can care for others and put their oxygen mask on. And that's always stuck with me because if I don't take care of myself, I actually can't care for others. And so I try to prioritize my care, knowing that it will benefit the whole.
Yeah, so important. I think, yeah, like have that self-awareness also
Mhm.
to recognize that when you need a rest,
Yeah, that's
just
okay.
not, yeah, take a pause and yeah, it's okay. It's okay to not do anything. I think like we in the society just a lot of like maybe overdoing being productive.
It's almost like a badge of honor to be productive, and I mean, I am as guilty as anyone. I definitely associate my worth with my productivity and find that I have to regularly check myself, and I mean, I have so many things that I like and wanna do, so I am a bit of an energizer bunny, but actually it is important to rest and, like, you can decide, like, this is enough for today, or this is enough I've booked for this fall, and, like, I mean, lucky for me, I have 2 people in my household, my husband and my child, who do know how to rest and model it well. So, they definitely keep me in check and, like, tell me to cool my heels sometimes.
I understand. That's awesome. Yeah, like and find your happy place, right? Like find what inspire you, like find a place that is like a sanctuary for you, like all those things I think really help.
Mhm.
So that's all our questions for this episode of Gooder Stories. A big thank you to Amanda Schutz for sharing her insight, experience, and creative approach to helping nonprofits bring their missions to life through design. For people interested in seeing your work, where can they find it, Amanda?
Yeah, my studio is called Curio Studio, as you mentioned, so you can find us online at curiostudio.ca. I have a personal website with my illustration work and my personal artwork, and that's amandaschutz.com, SCHUTZ. And then Canadian Women in Design, it's womenindesign.ca, or you can just Google Canadian Women in Design.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
If you enjoyed today's conversation, make sure to follow or subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. And if you know a fellow nonprofit communicator who could use a fresh perspective on visual storytelling, send this their way. And that's a wrap on another good story. Until next time, keep making stories worth sharing. Bye.